Greetings, Bat Family, and welcome back to Holy BatCast, brought to you by Real Fans for Real Movies. Make sure you visit holybatcast.com or find us all over social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. Just search for Holy BatCast, you'll find us. If you love the show, you want to help support us, you can do that on Patreon. You go to patreon.com/holybatcast. And as always, a big thank you to our patrons. You guys are amazing. Like we said on the last episode, you guys make our lives just easier. And yeah, there are surprising costs that come with doing these podcasts for fun. And you guys make those costs not a burden to bear. And so thank you. It really means a lot. We're part of the Real Fans Podcast Network, so if you're looking for other shows to enjoy, you can check those out at rf4rm.com. Quick shout out, the original show, Real Fans for Real Movies, I just released a random episode of that in honor of Friday the 13th. So if you're still in the mood for Friday the 13th, even though it's been a couple days, go check that out. I think you'll have fun with it. We had fun with it, so that's all that matters. As always, I'm Andy DeGenova. You can follow me on Twitter or on Instagram or on Letterboxd. It's just my name, Andy DeGenova. This episode, we are going to be remembering one of the greats, Mr. George Perez. We're also going to check in on whatever news is happening out there. Nothing too earth-shattering, but a couple little things here and there. And we are going to review the next episode of Batman Beyond. For all of that, this early Sunday morning, I've got my good pal Jamie Drewley drinking his coffee. I'm drinking mine. Hi, Jamie. Good morning. Is the sun up there?
The sun is up. The heat is on, and it's magnificent. I mean, it's
good.
been in like the upper 80s all week, and it's been great.
All right. Well, it was about time.
But yeah, exactly.
I feel like last time we talked, you were still waiting for that.
Yes. So it's been a great week weather-wise around these parts. I got to say that this coffee is 100% necessary because I'm not sleeping real well right now because I'm in the middle of listening to another GGH horror bracket tournament. And I got to tell you, these guys are going to be the end of me if they don't knock this off, man.
At this point, I think they're just doing it on purpose.
I think they are. I think they're trolling us. I think that's exactly what it is. But
I haven't listened yet. I've got enough stress in my life without adding one more piece. Like, could you imagine? That's what's going to break me. Is that episode is it's what's going to drive me finally to the padded room. Maybe I need it. Maybe I need the break. But I just haven't gotten to it yet. I don't think I've got the mental capacity at the moment.
Well, I will say, Preston, nothing but love for you, man. He came in at the last minute and saved one of them that was going to have me in an absolute gamma rage fit.
Did they really throw shade at us at the beginning?
They did. It wasn't bad. It's kind of like what we're doing now. It's all tongue in cheek. We're all friends. It's all good.
Well, we were all friends.
Well, we were. I mean, I haven't gotten to the end of the episode yet. We'll see what happens in the next 90 minutes of me listening to that podcast. Great. But it's a lot of fun, man. I love it when they do those tournaments. It's just they're crazy. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, aren't we all? Well, good. Something to look forward to this week. Anyway, we also have a special guest. We actually kind of inadvertently dedicated our last episode to him because he was like the ghost contributor, but it wasn't a ghost because we just gave him the credit. He fed us so much great information in the celebration of the life of Neil Adams, and unfortunately was unavailable to join us to just do it in person. And I was like, well, sadly, we have another chance to do this just a week later because we lost two legends in 2 weeks, which is a bummer, but I was like, hey, maybe this week. So joining us to talk about George Perez and everything else, it's our pal Robert Reineke. Hey, Robert, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me on, Andy. It's always a pleasure, and I'm always available for unpaid research assistant duties.
Well, it is very much appreciated. You know what? I even got a message from our pal. Oh my God! It was either Joe or Eric from The Fire Rises. I want to say it was Joe, but my bad if I'm getting them mixed up. But they were like, "Hey, I think it was Joe." He goes like, "Hey man, thank God for Robert and what he sent your show because it helped me so much with the research for my show." And I'm like, "Yeah, right. He's the best." So look at you. You're helping not just one Batman podcast, but multiple.
Well, this useless knowledge sometimes have uses.
Well, at least you're using your powers for good, and we appreciate that.
Well, it's a pleasure to be on.
It's a pleasure to have you back. It's been way too long. I mean, we talk pretty often, but it's been way too long since we've had you on the show. And you've got your own show where the long tail ends, which is always fun, digging up random sci-fi stuff. So I guess you can plug it at the end, but I'm plugging it for you now too.
Sure. Well, we could plug it now too, because Andy's supposed to be on in about a month.
I'm looking forward to it.
I'll save it for the end of the show for what you'll be on for.
All right. Yes, we'll keep everybody in suspense. Guess you have to listen to the end now to see what other random thing I might be talking about on a future podcast. Awesome. All right. Well, like I said, what's not so awesome is we have to do this 2 weeks in a row, as we've got to remember a legend. This is one, though, that doesn't really come as a surprise, so at least we were able to sort of mentally and emotionally prepare for it, but we have to say goodbye to George Perez. We knew that George Perez had been battling cancer. He let us know that at the end of last year, and so I would say the silver lining to that, he was only 67, which is still way too young, but the silver lining of him being public about his battle with cancer and his retirement is that we, as a community, had the past 6 months to tell him how much we love and appreciate him. And I think that's really beautiful, because we've seen nothing but love pour out since that announcement was made, and to see him just sort of enjoy what time he had left. And we saw social media posts of him getting to see stuff and just be celebrated while he was still around to realize how much we loved him. But unfortunately, he did pass this past week from his battle with pancreatic cancer, and so we've got to say goodbye to another legend. So George Perez, man, like, speaking of people whose work is just going to live forever, he's one of them. And so Robert, I mean, this is why we brought you on. I have what I consider like the quintessential George Perez. For me, when I think of him, I think of Teen Titans, and I think of Crisis on Infinite Earths. To me, like, those are the visuals that immediately come to mind, because they're just so iconic. And then I was seeing, the world share different pieces of George Perez art and some really amazing stuff. And I was like, oh God, like the Wonder Woman run in the 80s.
Yeah, which he also wrote.
Yeah, honestly, that was one I'd kind of forgotten about until it came up in conversation. And then when I dug into it, I realized just what an iconic run that was. So, yeah. Anyway, Robert, please share with us some of your memories and highlights and just thoughts about George Perez's career.
Well, I can tell you I was there at the start of his DC career. I had a subscription to Justice League of America back in the day, so that would arrive every 4 weeks like clockwork in those brown paper wrappers. They had started one of their annual JLA, JSA crossovers, and longtime artists on Justice League had died, so they called in George Perez to at least finish that arc, and then he would be a semi-regular artist up through issue number 200. So issue 184, I was introduced to George Perez, teaming up JLA, JSA, and the New Gods, which is kind of like, yeah, he gets to draw a bunch of characters and draws them all awesomely, and stories I didn't know I needed, like Superman, Golden Age Wonder Woman, and Big Barda taking on Granny Goodness. Those type of awesome ideas and stories, and his polish, and nothing against Dick Dillon, who was a fine artist, but he was past his prime. And then we got this exciting up-and-comer that really made every issue that he drew a treat. And as I said, he apparently JLA was one of his dream jobs, and it showed. Mm-hmm. Stayed through the great anniversary issue of number 200, which is an all-star jam. Let me tell you some of the people that drew that. Perez drew the framing story and the cover, and it really feels like a prelude to Crisis on Infinite Earth, on how many characters he would fit into that story. But you would have Perez draw the frame and the conclusion. You have people like Joe Kubert drawing Superman versus Hawkman, Carmine Infantino doing The Flash versus Elongated Man, Gil Kane drawing the Atom versus Green Lantern. Clearly they intended to have Neil Adams on that issue, it didn't work out, so they had to settle for Brian Bolland to draw Batman versus Black Canary and Green Arrow.
Hey, if you gotta settle, Bolland is a great way to go.
Dick Giordano drew Wonder Woman versus Zatanna, and Pat Broderick drew Firestorm versus the Martian Manhunter. So I can remember all of that like it was yesterday. I can remember some of those great iconic splash pages are there, and I remembered George Perez bringing it all together in an awesome anniversary issue. That run of his work, well, I guess, was semi-regular at that point because he was also drawing New Teen Titans, which I remember from the preview in DC Comics Presents, then onto its regular series. I was kind of hit and miss through about the first year, although the word spread quickly about what a great book it was. And I was a regular on that book right around when the Doom Patrol crossover hit, with one of the great covers with kind of a crucified robot man being discovered by Robin, Kid Flash, and Cyborg. And that was one that made a big impact on me, and I was a regular on that book through the rest of George Perez's run. And I subscribed when it went to the direct market only title, Deluxe Baxter Edition title, and I stayed on that. So, I mean, by 1982 or 1983, I would say he was probably the biggest artist in the business. And he certainly stayed that way probably through the rest of the 80s, into the 90s. I mean, followed up New Teen Titans. He had to leave the title where they had to settle for Jose Luis Garcia Lopez as his replacement, which tells you what good shape that title was in.
Yeah, right? Oh, my God. From the best to the best.
Yes.
There's no downside there.
Yeah. Yeah, and then of course, Crisis on Infinite Earths. Say what you will about the story, but the art is amazing with all the details and all the characters. Perez, I think, basically drew everybody that existed in the DC universe during the course of that book, sometimes literally hundreds per page, and yet he made it all clear and detailed and had striking compositions that made sense and didn't detract from the storytelling. Mm-hmm. So it was like the awesome book. And then I think it was a surprise to a lot of people that he would take over Wonder Woman. But I feel that you can tell that his heart was really in it in the 1980s. Because I feel that is the quintessential run of Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of defined her for the modern era. It brought in the mythology, but it was still modern. He would put her in armor sometimes, at least when it called for it. I feel we kind of see that in the armored suits today and some of the movie ideas, and yet he kept it focused on the character and her sensibilities, and he balanced the peace and love aspects with the action aspects very well. And at least was in touch with 80s era feminism. And he was able to bring that all together and still tell very entertaining, non-preachy stories. And I think it's just a wonderful run. I think as a creator, maybe art-wise he won't be quite remembered for it, but as a writer, that will be the run everybody points to.
Yeah, for sure. And I love what you said, I guess, in relation to Crisis, is that and it's not just Crisis, it's a lot of the work that he has done, but it's such a great point of how he was able to just do these huge, massive pieces of art that had hundreds of characters, and yet each one was done with such detail and such clarity that they're so distinct, and it's just such like a beautiful composition, and that's like such a talent. Like there are no shortcuts taken, but those big splash pages where he has to fit in so many pieces of a universe, and he was able to do it so well, and not just with Crisis, but also with, on the other side, Infinity Gauntlet. It's just something that he just made look so easy.
Yeah, I mean they could have been Where's Waldo drawing, but they're not quite that, because I feel that there's more storytelling still involved in those splash pages.
Yeah.
Than just kind of a cluttered, I wouldn't say mess, but it's not just to show how many characters he could draw.
Exactly.
And it's probably amazing that he was still able to do that on roughly a monthly schedule.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh my God. Jamie, chime in. What are some of your favorites from the George Perez catalog?
I mean, I'll just get it out of the way now. I know we're DC. I know we love DC. I mean, that's our main thing. But, you know, we like geek stuff. I mean, I play on both sides of the fence. It's cool, right? For me, Infinity Gauntlet is the best crossover story of all time in comics. I love that book, and George Perez did the first 4 issues of that 6-issue run. And it's gorgeous, and I love it. And there's not a bad panel anywhere, even after he left and Ron Lim took over. There's still not a bad panel in it, in my opinion. But the fact that this guy was so heavily involved in what could arguably be the best crossover for the 2 biggest comic book companies in the world, being Crisis on Infinite Earths and Infinity Gauntlet, says something. You know, I mean, it's... The guy is a legendary talent for a very good reason. I mean, Infinity Gauntlet, multiple Crisis books, not just the Crisis on Infinite Earths, but that's the one he's most known for. The Wonder Woman series that he took over in the 80s, I didn't read any of that. I'm not familiar with it, but in just doing some research this morning, it seems to me like that is really the modern myth of Wonder Woman that we all subscribe to with the movies and what her character currently is in comics and everything else. It feels like that run that he did was mainly responsible for that vision of Wonder Woman.
Yeah, well, and I feel like, much like we talked about with Neil Adams last week, is even if you did not read Perez's Wonder Woman run, you Google it and you go, oh, I know that art. And that it was like what we said about Neil Adams in the Green Arrow, Green Lantern series, where you go, oh, you've seen the art even if you've never read the book. Same thing with Perez's Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was part of that 1986 post-crisis relaunch, as a one with Byrne's Man of Steel and Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen and Howard Chaykin's The Shadow, and kind of fits in that period with Dennis O'Neill's The Question and Green Arrow, or Mike Grell's Green Arrow: The Longbow Hunters. So it was a big chunk of that whole relaunch, and one of the reasons that 1986 is DC's probably best year ever.
Wow, yeah.
It's hard to argue that. And then Judas Contract, I mean, that's another legendary DC series that he was hip deep involved in.
Yep.
But what I got curious about in reading that is things that he was involved in actually creating as far as like characters are concerned. And his list, I mean, I'm going to do the Marvel ones first just to get them out of the way. But Nova, the Frankie Ray version that was the Herald of Galactus. Maestro, which we talked the last couple of episodes for some reason about the whole evil twins thing. Maestro was like the evil twin Hulk in the comics. Jocasta, which was like the Bride of Frankenstein for Ultron. Iron Maiden, who was just in the recent Black Widow movie played by Rachel Weisz. Taskmaster, also in that movie. And this one I did not know. There was a version of White Tiger by the name of Hector Ayala, who in 1975 was Marvel's first Hispanic superhero.
Yeah, that's part of his legacy.
Not a character I know, frankly, a thing about, but the fact that he was involved in that and the design and the characters. I mean, he apparently gave that character like his brother's face. The character's mother was based on his mother. Like he pulled a lot from personal experience to be involved in the design of that character. So I thought that was really significant, obviously. And then you come onto the DC side of things. I'm going from bottom to top here. Maxima, I don't know why. I've always thought she was a pretty cool character.
She is. I did not know that George Perez helped create her.
Right. Here's one that you may or may not know: the Adrian Chase version of Vigilante.
Yeah, that was right about New Teen Titans.
Nice.
Since we've been talking so much about Peacemaker lately, I thought that was a nice, fun one.
And the costume is what survived.
Cool. Monitor and Anti-Monitor. I mean, obviously, those two have had a very far reach in the DC universe since 1985.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was involved in creating both of those. The new Teen Titans. I mean, start the list and just go. Cyborg, Starfire, Raven. I mean, all the main new Teen Titans characters are works of him and Marv Wolfman.
Yeah, and I think most of them stand up very well. I mean, I think Cyborg and Raven can't possibly be better than what Perez came up with.
Sure. Mm-hmm. The Dick Grayson version of Nightwing. Of course, there's a Nightwing that predates that, but it's not the Grayson version. The Nightwing that we all know, George Perez.
Nice.
And for me, the most significant one on the DC side of the fence, Deathstroke.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So this cat's had a very heavy contributing hand, both DC and Marvel, in doing some very significant and what's the word I'm looking for? Iconic, long-lasting. I mean,
timeless, memorable.
Yeah, just run down that list, right?
Yeah.
The guy again, legend, and much like what we talked about with Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams, George Perez and Marv Wolfman, much that same kind of team. Like the two were so synonymous with each other and worked so well together, and there's a lot of things owed by the geek community to these guys for the contributions that they've made for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the early '80s, New Teen Titans might have been the book keeping DC afloat, at least in like 1981 through about 1984, that time frame, because that was definitely their biggest hit, especially after the infamous DC implosion in the late 1970s. This is the one that kind of put them back on the upswing.
Wow.
It's their X-Men equivalent.
Yeah. There was even a crossover, wasn't there? X-Men meets the Teen Titans?
Yeah. Yeah, a very good one, actually.
Yeah.
Drawn by Walt Simonson.
Awesome.
Another one, if you had to settle for, you're not doing too bad.
Right. No, I mean, honestly, yeah, like the amount of his work, and Jamie, thanks for sharing all that, and Robert too, like so much amazing stuff where once you start hearing it listed out, you're like, oh my God, what a career. That's just so impressive. And again, just something that will live on forever. I have to share my George Perez story real quick. Now, I've never met George Perez. That he's one that I did not get a chance to meet, but I have a very weird connection with George Perez that always made me laugh. So when me and my good pal Scott Hopkins, who you guys know from the podcast and the Real Fans group and whatnot, he and I were roommates for 100 years, give or take, especially here in Orlando when we were both working at Walt Disney World. And when we worked at Walt Disney World, we were both character performers. That was how we met, and we worked together. And we worked with another young lady who was just very fun, very sweet, but like kind of naive, like just not super dialed into the rest of the world. She sort of lived in her own little world, but like in a very fun way. And we had another woman who worked with us in characters, and she was an older woman, because a lot of times, working the job here, you'd get a lot of retirees or people who just wanted to do it part-time for fun. They weren't doing it for the money. It was just something fun. And yeah, there was this nice middle-aged woman who worked with us, and I worked with her a handful of times. And I want to say she was like chipmunk height, so like Chippendale, like that. And I think her name was Carol, if I'm remembering correctly. And so Susie, who was our friend, and then Carol was this middle-aged woman, like we would hang out with Susie and talk to her. And one time Susie came to our apartment and saw that we just had comic books everywhere, because Scotty, he loves comics, but he doesn't read comics. He loves the artwork. So what he does is he just buys artwork, or he buys comics that he loves, and he like essentially puts them on the wall like their artwork because he loves the cover so much.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
And he had a bunch of covers from Crisis on Infinite Earths. And Susie is like, oh my God, you love comic books. That's so cool. Carol's husband, he draws comic books. You should meet him. His name's George. He's super nice.
Oh my God.
Oh gosh.
And we were like, oh, that's nice, great. You know, Carol's husband does something with comics. That's cool. And then Scott, like, because Susie and Scott were closer, Susie like was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna see if he can sign something for you, and we were just kind of like, okay, whatever. And she comes back with a signed copy of Crisis on Infinite Earths from George Perez. It turns out we had been working with George Perez's wife in characters at the Magic Kingdom and had no idea. And we're like, wait, George is George Perez? Like the George Perez? And Susie was just like, oh yeah, no, George, Carol's husband. Like no clue what a legend he was. Just no idea. And it was just so cute that she just thought, oh yeah, you know, this nice lady's husband. And it was George Perez.
And he draws comics. He just, you know, he just kind of does it for fun, right? He doesn't have any. That's crazy.
And I don't know if he was still in Orlando when he passed. It doesn't say in any of the pieces that I've seen about him, you know, remembering him. But he lived here with his wife when I was here. And it was just so funny to us that we're like, man, George Perez lives essentially in our neighborhood and, you know, just in relative obscurity, just hanging out and doing his thing.
I can just see, if you had the chance to meet him, I can just see, for some reason in my head, what's playing is you two knock on the door and George Perez opens the door, and then you and Scott turn into Wayne and Garth. We're not worthy.
I know. And honestly, I wish I'd have pushed harder to be like, hey, we should go see Carol's husband. Like, we appreciate the signature, but we should go see him. You know, we should set up lunch or something. We never did it. You know, it was just one of those things where it was like, oh my God, that's so cool. But
by all accounts, he's one of the sweetest human beings who's ever drawn a breath too. So I mean, that probably would have been him answering the door and been like, yeah, come in, have some coffee. We'll chat, you know?
Well, and I mean, I think it does speak to just like his humility, right? That like, you know, he lived in Florida and Susie was literally just like, oh yeah, I think George does something with comics. Like he never was like, no, I'm George freaking Perez, yo. Like, I've drawn some of the most iconic comics you've ever seen in your life.
It'd be like working with, you know, Steven Spielberg's wife and her friends. Like, yeah, I think he does something with cameras or something. I don't know.
Yeah, right. But anyway, and the other thing, and this is something I need to look up because I've not seen it, but I've seen other people share it, is that he did a quick little guest spot on Teen Titans Go.
Really?
I'm not surprised by
with
that.
Marv Wolfman. Like, they did like little cameos on Teen Titans Go, so I have to figure out which episode that is so I can watch it. But I just think that's so fun too.
That is great. I'm glad he never became bitter towards some of his work and his compensation.
Yeah,
he seemed to be a happy guy throughout.
Well,
I mean, that's the unfortunate part. So many guys from that era. I mean, we talked about it the last episode too. That they never got their proper compensation or recognition or anything else for all the contributions that they made that made these companies the successes that they are, or rejuvenated them in some way or another. Like you said, New Teen Titans might be the book that kept DC afloat in the early 1980s. I mean, if that's not relevant and significant and worthy of some compensation and recognition, I don't know what is, you know?
Yeah. How much did Infinity War and Endgame make?
Yeah.
Right. 5 billion, 6 billion.
So valid. Anyway, again, what a talent, what a life, what a legacy. I
have one more thing, Andy.
Oh, sure. Go for it.
I feel like we should bring up Perez's relationship to Batman.
Yes.
On this podcast. I mean, he didn't draw a lot of Batman outside of the crossovers. I know he did the covers to A Lonely Place of Dying.
Yes, I was going to bring that up. Thank you. Another one of my favorites.
And they did a New Teen Titans Batman and the Outsiders crossover in the mid '80s, which I remember being a lot of fun. I mean, you went from Perez on one part to Aparo on the other. That's a lot of fun.
Oh, that's great.
And DC did publish a portfolio of some of the George Perez artwork on Batman. Let me see if I can turn on my camera here, and I can show you some of the drawings that they have here, which is basically the stuff like the. Let me get this in front of the camera. You can see it there.
Yeah. I've seen that.
Yeah, and there's like 8 oversized pieces here, and they are, of course, drawn by Perez and just lovely. Maybe there's 11 of them.
Oh my god, that piece I shared because it's so beautiful. Like literally after he passed, I literally just typed in Batman George Perez, and that was another piece. It's the one with the hot air balloon with the Joker's face, and it's just beautiful. So yeah, even though he was not a regular Batman artist, the pieces you can find of him doing Batman and Robin and Joker are just gorgeous. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like you said, A Lonely Place of Dying, those covers I consider some of the most iconic, and maybe that's just me. I'm sure Rob Myers on Everyone Loves the Drake would agree with me, but yeah, like those are also just amazing pieces.
Yeah, and the latter Brave and the Bold series they did, through the opening arc with that, and I feel that's part of the Batman legacy too.
I have the first issue of that signed by George Perez. I did not meet him. I bought it on eBay. It was a yellow label CGC book, but trust me when I say that one, it's not one I ever bought for investment value or anything like that, but it means something more today than it did last week. You know what I mean? It's significant.
Yeah, of course.
And let me just address this since he had his camera on for a second. Ladies and gentlemen, this man showed up for work today wearing a Batman t-shirt to do a Batman podcast. Let's give him a little bit of props.
Heck yeah. That's awesome.
Should I show you my Dark Knight Returns poster on the wall?
Yes, you should.
I think I can get this on the
Here we go in real time. Hey.
Sweet Christmas.
And that's another one of those pieces of art that I feel like is sort of, it's not seen as often, but in the 80s it was everywhere, like in every ad for the Dark Knight Returns. That's a great choice.
Yeah,
I love
that. That was
one.
on my college wall in the 80s, but now it's on my wall now, properly framed. It's seen better days, but it's still there.
It doesn't matter. You know, when something gets aged and weathered, it just makes it cooler.
Yes.
So all I need to know now, since you've shown me that, is what time you leave for work and what time you come home. So, and if you have a large dog.
Should I hide my box, which has the Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen and Alan Moore Swamp Thing issues in it?
I mean, it wouldn't be bad on your part to do that. I
mean. Or maybe I should put a convenient label on it.
Jamie, do not touch.
If you're trying to declutter, just yeah.
I'm just trying to help everybody out here.
That's nice. Start replacing your lost collection, like we talked about last time. Anyway, great points all around. Anything else that you wanted to share about George Perez? Robert, I knew you'd come to work not just dressed well, but also, with dropping the facts, and so it's certainly appreciated. Anything else you didn't get to that we need to?
No, I think that's it. I mean, Perez had a great run both at DC and Marvel. I mean, we brought up Future Imperfect earlier, and I think that is a great book too. I mean, I don't feel he has a real signature work outside of the superhero genre, but he doesn't need it because he was one of the greats.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. And like I said, I feel like the really nice thing is that over the past 6 months, the community has just rallied around him, and he has seen the love, he has felt the love, and I think that's just a magical thing, because too many times when something like this happens suddenly, it's like you hope they knew, but we know George Perez knew. We know that he knew how loved he was, how much we adored his work, and again, to Jamie's point, just what a sweetheart of a person he, by all accounts, was. I'm glad we got to celebrate him while he was still with us, and not just after he left us.
Yeah, I mean, again, last week I watched the Batman and Bill documentary on Hulu, which is informative and heartbreaking. But I'm really glad that some of these guys in the later era are able to get the recognition that people like Bill Finger before him were not. Mm-hmm. So along those same lines, I'm glad he got to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody had a bad word to say about George Perez.
Yeah. All right. Well, rest in peace, George. Again, we appreciate all of the amazing work over the years. Amazing work that he had been doing before I was even born, and just really amazing body of work, and it will live on forever. So glad we could celebrate him here. Let's move forward. It's going to be just like we did last time, from one death to another. But this time, the next death is another CW show that joins the likes of Batwoman and Legends of Tomorrow. Naomi has also been canceled. I never even watched it. I honestly, I didn't hear a lot of people talk about it, so I think I'm not the only one. And maybe that's why it got canceled. But yeah, it's a shame because I heard it was decent. I never got around to it, so it's not a huge shock, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it's a huge shock, and they're clearly cleaning house.
Yeah.
Over at the CW. There's an article, I think it was in Variety this week, on the cleanup, and it's basically it looks like they want to sell the CW. And the way the CW was set up, it was basically a loss leader for CBS and Warner Brothers, who made the money on overseas sales on the shows, but the network itself didn't make money.
Interesting.
So the streaming rights and the international sales paid for all the shows, and the CW itself, who was actually quote unquote paying for the shows, actually would be losing money on a station by station basis.
Interesting. Not surprising though, because I do feel like I feel like these shows do better on Netflix and on streaming and whatnot, and so that's not a huge surprise. I will also correct myself from the last episode. Someone pointed out, because we talked about how just sort of this all seems like the death knell for the Arrowverse. And again, we're not that upset about it, not because we didn't love it, but I just am like, what a heck of a run for this whole universe of interconnected shows and characters that have been going on since Arrow premiered. But I mentioned, and the Flash is in its last season, and someone corrected me and said it actually next season is the last season. We're still in season 8, and next season is season 9, and that is now set to be the last one. So apologies. If anything, it just proves my point of I'm having a hard time keeping up with all of it. I thought we were already into the last season, but apparently that's not the case. So apologies for the bad info there.
Yeah, and when you just look at the sheer volume of shows they made and the number of episodes, I would say it's probably the natural end of the run anyhow. Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, like the amount of episodes, to your point, it's still an endless black hole of content that any fan can fall down at any time, as long as these shows remain available on streaming. So whenever there is a gap and you want to dive into one of these shows, they're there, and it's just, there's so much content that, again, I can't be mad about it eventually ending, because man, the amount of stuff they gave us in the meantime is pretty mind-blowing.
I mean, they're going to end up with, 180 some episodes, maybe 200 episodes of The Flash?
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of mind-blowing.
That's a pretty good run for any show, let alone a quote, smaller network,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I mean, what would be the only superhero show that outlasted that? Smallville?
Yeah.
Yep. But where one dies, another lives. So Naomi is canceled, but apparently the Gotham Knights show has been ordered as a series at the CW. So it was something we talked about, again, on the last one, because of the cancellation of Batwoman and Legends. Is like, what happens to that Gotham Knights show? Seems like it's moving forward, so it seems like they have some faith in it. It's being picked up for the next season, so it'll premiere in the fall, probably. There's no premiere date, but it says the 22-23 TV season, so that would be the fall. And it is moving forward. Here is the log line again for Gotham Knights. In the wake of Bruce Wayne's murder, his rebellious adopted son forges an unlikely alliance with the children of Batman's enemies when they're all framed for killing the Caped Crusader. And as the city's most wanted criminals, this renegade band of misfits must fight to clear their names. But in a Gotham with no Dark Knight to protect it, the city descends into the most dangerous it's ever been. However, hope comes from the most unexpected of places, as this team of mismatched fugitives will become its next generation of saviors. There's already been some casting. Misha Collins will be Two-Face. Oscar Morgan is quote-unquote Bruce Wayne's adoptive son. I don't know if we know who it is yet. I assume it's Dick Grayson.
I mean, that would be the logical direction, but
either that or Tim Drake.
Yeah, maybe. Because I just feel like it wouldn't be Damien, because then they wouldn't use the word adoptive. Olivia Rose Keegan is Duella Dent. Navia Robinson is Carrie Kelly. Anna Laurie as Stephanie Brown. And Fallon Smith and Tyler DiChiara are Harper and Cullen Rowe.
So Stephanie Brown kind of leads into that Tim Drake speculation.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's one of those where, it's kind of like we talked about in the last one about Green Lantern. I'm like, do you really need to kill Batman? But at the same time, I'm like, if it's Tim Drake as the star, I'm going to watch it.
Yeah, if it's Drake, and it'd be like, hey, I'll stick a knife in Batman for Tim Drake. Yeah, let's do this.
I'm fine with that. So interesting. This is definitely one of those where I need to see more before I really even know how I feel, because it is a weird one. It is Batman related, so of course I'm looking forward to it in one way or another, but because we have seen nothing, I'm just kind of waiting. But it's one of those where I'm like, I'm curious, but I'm waiting to see more. How you guys feel?
The Carrie Kelly thing's the one thing that kind of has me sit up and take notice, but it's so far removed from anything that I know of her. I guess it's more of just a curiosity thing to see how they fit her into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious to see a live action Carrie Kelly, because I feel it's long overdue. But otherwise, it's kind of like I'm kind of in wait and see mode.
Yeah.
It could be fun, but I just have a concept at this point, and it seems like it's playing like with the upcoming game. They seem to be kind of treading in the same territory, so we'll see, I guess.
Yeah. No, I agree, and that's exactly where I'm at too. I'm also very curious to see how Two-Face will look. If it's straight up Two-Face and they're just doing Two-Face as the big bad for at least the first season, I think that's a lot of fun, and so I'm intrigued.
I'll say Duella Dent is quite the pull.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's an obscure character.
It really is. And Harper and Cullen Rowe, like that, they're pretty recent, and they're starting to pop up in other media, which is always, I think, a good sign for the characters. But I just started the second half of season 4 of Young Justice, and I will say, already so much better than the first half of the season. Jamie, I know you've been watching it.
Yeah, it's. I take back every bad thing I said about.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm like, oh, good. It's fine. It's finally the Young Justice I love. But yeah, I mean, Harper Rowe is president in Young Justice too. So,
I mean, just taking it back to the George Perez thing, how many Young Justice characters are George Perez creations or co-creations?
Yeah.
I mean, nuts, just nuts.
For sure. So anyway, we'll see what happens with this Gotham Knights, but I am intrigued. But speaking of Gotham Knights, what you just said, Robert, is we still got that game on the horizon. And so they announced that as they get closer to releasing the game, it will not be available for PlayStation 4 or Xbox One. It will only be for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series XS, and PC. And so I know that, again, as always, we're not big gamers, so for me, I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. But I know a lot of gamers were upset about this news because they're like, oh, for people who haven't upgraded yet, you just don't want our money. And I would agree with that. It seems kind of short-sighted to not make it available in as many places as possible. But this is the decision they made, so seems a little silly, but this is what they're doing. But anyway, they also released some info on the different editions for the game, and I'm trying to look and see if there is a release date for Gotham Knights. Oh, October 25th for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series XS, and PC. And they also released like some skins and mods and things like that. And there are some cool, like the designs in the game I like, but I don't love. But it seems like many of these more recent games, you can correct that with the different skins that you can put over the characters. So it looks like there's already more traditional Nightwing, Batgirl, Robin, and Red Hood that you can just put over the standard versions. And then there's a bunch of they always give you lots of options like that. So anyway, I'm not going to play it anyway because I don't have a PlayStation 5. I never even got a PlayStation 4. I still have a PlayStation 3, so it doesn't really matter to me. It doesn't change my life. But for all the gamers out there, yeah, if you want to play this, I hope you got one of the newer systems. Thoughts, feelings, reactions?
I'm not a gamer. I don't have time for gaming, unfortunately. But from what I saw of the gameplay, it looks fun. I mean, the multiplayer Bat Family team up game, that looks like it could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I kind of wish it was going to be I'll say, of course it's not going to be available for something I own, but I wish that I owned something that it could be played on, because just a Bat Family game is really cool. I'm into it. I love the idea, and I probably would play it, but I'm not buying a PS5 just to play it.
Well, it'll be available. Well, it'll be available forever. So
that's
maybe
true.
you catch it in 10 years.
Exactly. I mean, I still have it on my list of things to do is to play the Arkham games. So we'll see how that goes. Jamie, anything to add?
I mean, we all know gaming's not really my thing. I mean, in concept, it all sounds really cool and everything. So for everybody out there that is a gamer, knock yourselves out. For me, I don't have much to offer in the way of other than saying, yeah, it looks like something that would be fun for somebody who does that sort of thing, but that's just not me.
Yep. No, fair enough. So anyway, that's coming in October, but coming sooner than that this summer, this is something I kind of forgot existed, if I'm being honest, is in 2005, there was a Crypto the Superdog animated series. And it's coming to DVD this summer, just in time for the release of DC League of Super Pets.
DVD?
I know, right? Weird. My guess is
VHS. I mean, if we're going to do that,
I kind of want to buy it.
Synergy.
I think, do you know what's funny is a couple years ago, I was like, why do some of these movies still come with a DVD copy? And a friend of mine corrected me. It was like, as soon as you have kids with the DVD player in the van, you'll know why. And I was like, oh.
When my wife and I ordered our SUV, we spent an extra $2,000 to get the headrest DVDs in the back of it for that very reason. Because when you go on road trips with the kids, that's what they're going to do. But then the interesting point to that is we also have a portable DVD player, because we have the two in the headrest for the middle row, and then the third row, somebody had a portable DVD player. And all the kids fight over the portable ones so that they can shift and move and do all the stuff in the back seat. So the headrest ones became instantly obsolete. So thanks for that, kids.
Great.
My understanding is that DVD still outsell Blu-ray.
Wow. And especially for kids content, it feels like, like, and I think that's just it, is like, DC Super Pets comes out on July 29th. This is being released August 2nd. So my guess is it's on DVD, so it will be inexpensive on the Target shelves. So the week after Super Pets comes out, mom and dad are walking through Target and go, oh, okay, oh, look, we just saw that movie, or they want to see that movie. I can buy this DVD set for $20 and put it in the car. I bet that's got to be why. I also have to imagine that there will be a digital version for anyone interested, but I do kind of understand, like, if it's just targeted to impulse buys for families, for kids, I understand why they'd go with DVD.
Yeah, the price point, I'm sure, is going to be right on that. That strikes me, that's probably a WB Archives release too, which is, they do old seasons of WB shows usually on DVD.
Yeah.
Very rarely are you going to see the Blu-rays of the season, maybe because of the size of the disc that you would have to fit it in.
Yeah, for sure. So, anyway, for anyone interested, anyone who wants to dig up some old crypto content from 2005, this is going to be available, at least on DVD. Again, I would assume it's also going to pop up on HBO Max, probably on iTunes, because that's usually what happens, but keep an eye out and see. But yeah, if you can't get enough from DC League of Super Pets, you can go to the crypto animated series.
Yeah, I unless they're going to do like a 4K remaster with, recoloring and cleaning up all the cells, yeah. I'm going to be a film snob and say nah.
Oh, okay. Well, until they remaster it in 3D for my 3D TV, I'm not going to watch it.
There you go.
Yeah. Damn right.
And I should say, WB Archives has quite a selection of animated shows in their catalog. I'd probably be going for like the Tex Avery sets rather than the crypto set myself.
For sure. You should get Legends of the Superheroes from the archive collection. That's how I got mine. All right. So, and then one last piece. Right now, you guys are listening to a Batman podcast, but we are not the only Batman podcast. There is also the new Spotify Batman podcast called Batman Unburied. And so this was released, and then within 3 days, it became the top of Spotify's podcast chart. So it is it's number one, and so all of the headlines last week were Batman podcast unseats Joe Rogan's popular podcast. So there were a lot of jokes going around about that.
Batman's more popular than Joe Rogan? Whatever you say.
And a friend of mine who I used to work with, he actually on Twitter, he saw this and he quoted it and he just said, "Congratulations, Andy." And I was like, "Oh, thank you. It's a cross to bear." But anyway, I have not listened to this just because I don't use Spotify. I would literally only use Spotify to listen to this, and so I haven't gotten around to it. I don't know if you guys have.
I'm with you. I do everything on Apple Podcasts. So
same.
Not yet, but I mean, I could probably use the desktop version if I wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, I have Spotify on my phone, but I just never use it. I downloaded it for something random couple years ago, and so I do have it, and every once in a while I'll use it for something random. I just haven't done this yet, so curious as to see if it's any good, if people like it. Guys out there listening, if you're listening to Batman Unburied, tell me, is it good? Should I check it out? But at least it's popular on Spotify, so good for them.
Yeah, I probably think that this is bigger news than probably even we're giving it credit for, because that must be millions.
Yeah.
Of downloads. So that's significant, and it is a new market, and I expect, based on these initial, that there's going to be more of these coming out.
Yeah, for sure. All right, and that's what I got for news. Anything I forgot to add that you guys are like, Andy, come on, did you miss this? Answer is I probably did.
I can't think of anything else.
I think it's been not that much happening this week.
Yeah, it's been relatively quiet, but I'm glad we were able to give a lot of time to George Perez. That makes me happy. But we knew there wasn't a lot of news, and we are plugging away and getting really close to the end of Batman Beyond. I watched it last night while my baby was choosing chaos and screaming for no good reason. Maybe she didn't want to watch Batman Beyond. I don't know. So we did say last time it's a two-parter. So we watched it. We're going to talk about the next 2 episodes of Batman Beyond, which is Curse of the Kobra. Jamie, this is where you do like the Kobra battle cry from G.I. Joe.
Kobra, la 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 la.
It's
so weird.
It still does. I still don't believe you. I still think you're making it up. I think you're messing with me.
G.I. Joe the movie from like 1987, man. I'm telling you, it's a gem.
Okay. All right, so Curse of the Kobra, it's a 2-parter of Batman Beyond that aired on February 3rd and February 10th of 2001. First one was directed by James Tucker, the second by Dan Reba, and story is by Rich Fogel. 2-parter for this one, 2-parter. So, there's this new villainous clan, this new villainous organization in Gotham called Kobra. They steal a bomb. Batman tries to stop him. He fails, and so he's beating himself up about it. And Bruce is pretty understanding, but he's like, hey, you should go see this old friend of mine. And so Terry goes and meets Kairi Tanaka, who is an old woman, an old Japanese woman who like lives in, and it looks like she's a fish salesman, and it turns out no, she actually runs a dojo behind her fish business, and she is this skilled sensei. And so Terry joins up with her, and he's already really talented, but she's going to teach him some new stuff. There's some other students there, and one of those students is named Xander, and he's apparently very skilled, but a little mysterious, and we don't really trust him. And he's drawn with big old black circles around his eyes, so I know we can't trust him. Pretty easy to tell. But Terry starts learning, and Kobra is doing what they're doing out in Gotham. And Terry brings Xander out to teach him what pizza is, because he's never had pizza. They go to Chuck E. Cheese with Max. And so when this happens, they run into a gang of jokers. There's a big fight. And we find out Xander, he's like super protected. He's got these bodyguards with him, and he kind of gets in trouble for going out into the world. And turns out he is the heir apparent for the organization of Kobra. They're stealing bombs. They're stealing stuff from the museum that has something to do with dinosaur DNA. Or as Mr. DNA says, Dino DNA. Anyway. So they've got some sort of evil plan that Bruce and Terry are trying to figure out. Xander leaves the dojo. He takes his place as the leader of Kobra. He decides Max is so spirited and so cool that she should be his wife. And so he kidnaps Max. And then in part 2, Terry goes in and he and Bruce talk to Kyrie. She explains, like, yeah, I wasn't sure about Xander. I hoped to kind of help him, but it looked like it was too late. And so she feels responsible. They go after Max. Max is like, wants no part of this. Turns out that what Kobra is up to is they have the bomb to raise the temperature of the world. And also, they want the dino DNA because they're also turning everyone into dinosaur people. And the world,
that's the plan.
And the world has to be hotter because the dinosaur people, which I'm still not super clear on, but okay. So some of the henchmen start turning into dinosaur people. Terry shows up to save Max. There's a big brouhaha. The factory that they're in is actually not just a factory. It's like this big warship that starts hovering, and they're going to drop the bomb. And Terry manages to stop them with the help of Max, and they defeat Xander. Xander turns into a dinosaur himself at a certain point, but they defeat him. Kyrie, she shows up to sort of make good on the mistakes that she made by teaching Xander, and she stays behind to make sure that Xander goes down with the ship, and she goes down with the ship as well, which is super sad. And so Terry, Max, it's sad for Kyrie. I liked Kyrie. You don't like Kyrie?
I don't have much feeling for Kyrie.
I liked her. I'll give you that much. Anyway, so then they have a little funeral for Kyrie at her dojo. It is Terry, Max, and Bruce, and it's chilly. And I did like how they had like the big winter coats, and they're like, ooh, it's chilly. And I was like, oh, that makes me miss like the fall and stuff. But that's its own thing. Anyway, that's it. So Kyrie's dead. Xander is apparently dead. And that is the curse of the Kobra. Robert, you're our guest. Why don't you start first?
Okay. Positives. I think the opening credits are very cool.
All right, good.
Yeah. I like the design of Gotham and the kind of Jack Kirby touches. And I think I'm about out there.
Wow. Okay.
It took until season 3 for Bruce to decide that Terry needs some martial arts training.
Right.
That's
additional martial arts training. That's how I saw it. Additional.
Well, I mean, to be fair, an excellent martial artist knows they never stop learning, but that's kind of beside that point. I don't think the writers of the show thought that deeply about it.
No, I don't think so either. I will say there are a couple interesting ideas in here. I feel that Terry developing a relationship with a guy that's going to be a villain is an interesting idea when they're both out of costume and don't know who each other is. I think there's an idea here, but I don't think Terry pushes them, either induces doubts or makes him more villainous. I think he's just kind of there, and their relationship doesn't really matter. I mean, about the only thing that matters is that Xander gets fixated on Max. I mean, I kind of think it would have been more interesting if Xander had actually taken a bite of pizza and experienced it, but doesn't even get that. So he's kind of a one-dimensional character throughout. Never has any doubts or anything real interesting. I like Max as a character. I think Max is a lot of fun.
Max is awesome. That's something that's been an ongoing conversation as we've dove into Batman Beyond. Is Max is a great character, and I wish he would find life elsewhere in Batman mythology.
Yeah, but same thing. I don't like it near the end where Terry shoves Max into a closet. It's like, this is the late 1990s. She should be involved in it somehow at the conclusion or doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And every time Max gets ready to peak and just do something special and really break out, they shut her down. And I've never understood that choice.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And for at least a good chunk of the story is based on Terry getting some martial arts training. I don't think he learns all that much. Maybe he's told to protect his left more, but it never plays any part in the story, not even at the climax. So it's kind of like, well, what's the point if he's not going to learn anything, either spiritually or practically out of all that? So, I mean, I know of Kobra. I was aware of the 1970s series, and they had showed up in Batman and the Outsiders under Mike W. Barr and Alan Davis, and in Suicide Squad. But they've always struck me as kind of generic, and they kind of struck me as generic here. And the turning into the dinosaurs thing is remarkably silly.
Yeah.
And the design isn't even that good.
Yeah, Jamie, what do you think?
Of all of the story choices to extend into a two-parter, why this one? and especially since it feels like so many of the ideas and concepts of this choice were half cooked, and they had 40 minutes to deal with this, and it just feels sorely underdeveloped in so many ways. I watched it yesterday morning, and I think I've probably already forgotten at least 35% of what I saw in these episodes, because it's just nothing really memorable going on, except for some of the bonkers things, which I'm, remembering and kind of scoffing at for all of the entirely wrong reasons. I think I'll take the other side of the road from Robert, in that I really like Kyrie a lot, but from my perspective, it's two of my favorite things, being a martial artist and a tough old no-nonsense woman. Like, you can almost imagine B. Arthur as an Asian woman doing, Bushido, and that would be her. So, I mean, that to me was a really good concept. I would have rather focused on her for 2 episodes than kind of what we did, because she shows up, they introduce her. I think it was an interesting way to go about it. But then it feels like they kind of rush through that portion of it and then don't really come back around to her till the end. But I did love at the end how she got involved.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I just think so many things in this so weird, so out of left field, and just, not only was it different directors for this 2-parter, but wasn't it different writers for it also? Well,
all of the story was Rich Fogel, but Stan Berkowitz actually wrote the second one.
Okay. It just seemed strange and almost disjointed there too. Maybe that's why, or maybe it's just because they just never developed any of the ideas to their potential, I should say. But
yeah, part 2 feels like it was more action all the time. Well, part 1 at least has some ideas, whether they're followed through or not. I don't think they follow through successfully, but they do feel like disjointed in kind of structure.
Yeah, we could have focused on Ra's al Ghul or even was it Big Time? Was that the one from the last episode? I would have probably rather a 2-parter focused on him, but like this close to the end of the series and they just pull this out for a 2-parter, and just I'm baffled by the choice. Mm-hmm. And the whole idea of Xander, taking a liking to Max because she whipped his ass in a video game and he wasn't used to losing. Like, I thought to myself, that's so rando that they went that direction. And I'm like, idiot, you became attracted to your wife because she sat down and watched Lois and Clark with you at Thanksgiving. And then a couple days later, when you guys were fooling around, she kicked your leg out from underneath you and knocked you on your butt. And that's when you fell in love. So I get that, that all makes sense to me now, but Max deserves more than what they give her on this show. It feels like they use her to like set things up periodically, but they just never give her any real payoff for it. And to me, that's disappointing and a missed opportunity.
Yeah. Well, before I even watched this one, Robert kind of gave me a heads up that he did not love it. And so I was like, oh, great. Like, I didn't really remember this one. But when I heard that, I was like, okay. And then I was watching it. And at the beginning, I was like, what? Come on, this is not bad. Like, I like the idea of Kobra. I liked the big opening action scene. I liked the idea of this organization. I thought their designs were pretty cool. And then I liked, and then it's like, oh, and then Terry, you need to go learn more. And here's this old woman who can teach you more about martial arts. And I'm like, come on, this isn't bad. And then it kept going. And then it got more and more bizarre and more batshit, but like not good batshit, just like really random batshit. And then I was like, oh, okay, I see. I get it now. Because yeah, for at least the first half of the first episode, I was like, oh, I'm actually kind of into this. I liked the idea of Kobra and I liked the setup. I liked how Kairi, like when she shows up and she's trying to sell fish and she's got like this very stereotypical accent. I even was like, oh, like, is this a little racist? Is it maybe? And then as soon as she gets back and away from it, she's like, he's like, what happened to your accent? She's like, oh, it helps me sell fish. And I actually like that. I'm like, oh, cool. They're actually like calling it out. I thought that was neat. But many of the things that I was going to say, you guys have covered so well. One of my first thoughts is what you said, Jamie, is like, they reintroduced Ra's al Ghul, and it's a one-parter. But you're going to dedicate a two-parter to the Curse of the Cobra? This is what you want to do? This could easily have been just a one-off.
I mean, just think for 1 second, if the guy that works Terry over at the beginning that gives cause for this reintroduction to martial arts training would have been like, oh, I don't know, Ubu, and you're dealing with the League of Shadows instead of the Cult of Cobra. I mean, there's some real potential that gets Batman fans sitting up and taking notice.
Yeah. And there's some real potential even in this story. It just, as it goes on, it just gets more and more random. And in some ways, I understand why it's a two-parter because there's a lot going on. But the problem is that all of that is going on, none of it seems to match up with each other. It all just feels so random. It's like, okay, the secret society of the Cobra, like they steal a bomb. Okay, that's sort of a good story. But then they also are stealing dinosaur DNA. And listen, nobody wants to see dinosaur people more than me, trust me. But why is the Curse of the Cobra interested in bringing dinosaurs back? Don't you think they'd want to make snake people because they're the Curse of the Cobra?
Yeah, I think you're asking too much of this episode.
And what I think you said it, Robert, is like the dinosaur people, like the design is pretty bad and they all look exactly the same, which is so disappointing.
They all look like He-Man action figures, which honestly I thought was kind of funny, but whatever.
But yeah, like they all look, they're all exactly the same dinosaur, which is like, what the hell? So yeah, like again, like just the very natural progression of it is a snake-based society. You would think that their big evil plan has to do with snakes. It doesn't. It has to do with dinosaurs. And I get kind of, okay, reptiles is the sort of the tenuous connection, but I don't think that's enough.
But dinosaurs are birds, man.
That's what we know.
We knew this by 2001.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, I just was like, that's a little bizarre. And then yeah, like him deciding he wants to kidnap Max to be his queen. I'm like, what? Like that's like its own idea. That's its own episode, and somehow it's wedged in here too. And I appreciate that Max is around for these episodes, but yeah, like do they use her that great? Not really. And then yeah, I was like, I I guess I kind of follow the rationale of, oh, if we're populating the Earth with dinosaur people, we have to raise the temperature, I guess, because cold.
Would a global warming take care of it by itself?
Yeah,
this elaborate plan.
So I just was like, I don't know.
They're impatient.
It was just a mess, and at the end, I was like, oh, you had a couple good ideas, but like you couldn't decide on one, and so instead they're all just thrown in together, and I don't think they work together. Yeah, the idea of Terry being taught by one of Bruce's old teachers, that's like a good idea. But it's thrown in, like, again, there's a lot of things that could work, but because they're all wedged together, I don't think any of it really works particularly well. So I like the idea of Kobra. I like the design of the different members of the Kobra Society, including Xander himself. I think that's a cool looking design. I have a vague recollection of Kobra being part of the DC universe. I appreciate that Batman Beyond was like, hey, here's kind of an obscure villain from DC's past. Why don't we try to reinvent that and use that for our show? So I appreciate some of the intent, but in the end, by the time this was over, I was like, what the hell just happened? This is insanity. So I'm not a big fan myself. I certainly don't think it deserved 2 episodes.
And the one thing that kind of went through my mind, especially at the the first half of that first episode, I always like it when they call back to things from Batman the Animated Series, because this is obviously a continuation of that, right? Mm-hmm. His name escapes me, but the ninja that was in a couple of those episodes, Andy, I know you were never a big fan of his, but I always kind of liked him because, the martial arts basis is a fascinating thing to me. I almost wish, as good of a character as I think Kyrie was, or at least had the potential to be, what if Batman somehow befriended that guy's daughter and she was this teacher that was taking Terry through the steps? Or even if Batman somehow befriended him and he recognized the error of his ways and became good and decided to help people, learn the more spiritual side of the arts, or just make up for the bad that he'd done. Something like that even would have been more interesting or more welcome for me, but it just, I don't know.
A bad guy that turns good is already a more interesting concept. It probably gives you an idea that maybe Xander has hope. But right. Xander is always kind of in that one direction and never deviates from it.
Yeah. Nope, that's exactly true. All right. Curse of the Kobra, 2-parter, letter grades. Robert.
D.
Okay. Jamie?
I'm giving it a C-, and I recognize that I'm probably being more generous than I need to be, but I think I'm giving it a little bit more because Kyrie was interesting, had great potential. I would have liked to maybe seen more of her right along, but it just, without her, I think this is more of like a D- episode set for me. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm gonna go C- as well. It doesn't come together. It doesn't quite work. But like, I didn't hate watching it. I just, there were enough good ideas in there that I give it a little credit. But it's, some of the decisions they made were a little baffling. So, same here. So a D and 2 C- for Curse of the Kobra. We got
going out with a bang here.
Yeah, we got 2 episodes left. Next one up is Countdown, and the one after that is Unmasked. So your homework for next time is Countdown. We're getting so close. Oh my gosh. So hang in there, guys.
Have you guys figured out what you are going to give the listeners choices for next bit yet?
I mean, I feel like it's Batman 66, The Batman, or Batman Brave and the Bold.
That sounds like the 3 logical choices, and hopefully you guys love all 3 of them, or at least like all 3 of them.
Well, I mean, 66 and Brave and the Bold, I'm definitely down for. The Batman, I don't have strong opinions either way because I'm not terribly familiar with it. I've seen like a couple episodes of the show plus the Dracula movie, and I like what I've seen, but I feel like that's another one of those shows, much like what we did with Batman Beyond. If the listeners or whoever chooses don't pick that one, I don't know if it's a series I'm ever going to sit down and watch.
So maybe you ought to give the listeners 2 choices instead of 3.
Could be. I mean, Brendan wants us to do the Batman. But I also feel like coming off to Batman Beyond, which we're very mixed on, I'm afraid we're going to be mixed on the Batman 2. You know, I don't want it to just be, you know, negative the whole time.
You don't want it to be a struggle.
Yeah. I mean, and I do appreciate the Batman. I especially appreciated it after the fact. I think it's a worthwhile show. It's a pretty good show. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see what the listeners choose. But right now, at least those are the choices I think we're going to offer.
I think we should also do Crypto the Superdog.
You know, let's just do that. To heck with it. Anyway, or we could do Beware the Batman, because that we'll get through real quick.
13 episodes?
I think so. I think it was it. All right. Well, there you go. Next time up, Countdown, the Return of Zeta. Speaking of characters you couldn't wait to see again. So that's Batman Beyond, but we're not going to say goodbye just yet because we have to check in with you fine feathered finks and crack open the Wayne Manor mailbox. It's time again for the Wayne Manor mailbox.
You've got mail.
Darren, what is a letter for me?
Maybe temporary.
She wrote a letter.
You're one hell of a messenger. This is all Master Wayne.
All right, first email here is from our pal Julian Chan. It says, hey guys, I hope you're well. I expect this on the next episode. So this came in, I think, just as we were recording the last episode. He says, I'm sure you'll be doing some sort of tribute to the great Neil Adams, who tragically passed away. I just wanted to add my voice, if you don't mind. I actually taught myself how to draw studying Neil's amazing artwork. I was so captivated by it. His work inspired a little boy to keep drawing and keep reading comics. In my opinion, he and Jack Kirby are the two true pioneers of the comic art world. I loved his work on the 3-part introduction to Man-Bat, the Green Lantern Green Arrow Traveling Hero series, the intro to Ra's al Ghul collected in an amazing oversized volume, and the Brave and the Bold comics, especially the ones including the Teen Titans. My favorite of his work, however, was what he created for Marvel in the X-Men comics, introducing the Sentinels. I still consider his work here as a high watermark in comics art. He was absolutely my hero of comic art, and I'm saddened that he's no longer with us. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you again. Cheers, Julian. All right. Thanks, Julian. I appreciate the additional thoughts and tribute to the late, great Neil Adams. I think that's awesome. I did not realize he was part of the introduction of the Sentinels. That's news to me.
I didn't either, and that's obviously a very significant thing in the X-Men history. So.
Yeah. So, good call. All right.
And Julian himself is a very gifted artist, so the fact that he was inspired by Neil Adams is a very strong endorsement, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Neil Adams has inspired a whole lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, next one up is from our pal Scott Brown. It says, hey guys, something that I thought about while watching The Batman for the second time. If the Riddler thought that he and the Batman were working together, wouldn't he have told his followers that the Batman was their ally in his messages? I feel like the confrontation should have shown his followers at first, expecting the Batman to help in that confrontation scene, before slowly realizing they were on opposite sides. Regards, Scott. Thanks, Scott. I'll take this one first. Is like, yes, he thinks he is having the Batman do what he wants. But he knows that he is manipulating the Batman into doing what he wants. So I don't think he literally thinks they're partners. Like, they're partners in a secret way. So it's not like he would tell his followers, oh, and Batman's cool, he's on our side. Because he's not. He knows Batman's not on his side. But that doesn't mean he's not using Batman to get what he wants. So I think that is the difference. Thoughts, guys?
Well, when Batman starts showing up and beating the hell out of the guys, I think it's pretty obvious too.
Right.
I mean, I feel that Riddler's at least hedging his bets at that point. He thinks it, but he doesn't know that, so he's kind of letting it be.
Yeah. Jamie?
I don't really have anything further to offer there. I think Andy said it about as well as it needed to be said.
All right. Speaking of the Batman, got another email here from Matthew Malecki. It says, hey guys, I don't think you've addressed this in all your discussions about the Batman since it came out, and I wanted to hear your thoughts. I'm currently going back and rewatching every Batman movie right after seeing the Batman and re-listening to each of your episodes about each one. During your Batman Returns episode, one of the best ones you've ever done, and the origin of the Bat Hangers, which needs to be brought up again every once in a while, you guys have a lengthy discussion about the screen time of Batman in Batman Returns, and how you're okay with how little he has. During the discussion, Andy even brings up the numbers of Batman screen time in each movie up to that point, and I know how much you like numbers, Andy, because I do too. In light of how much screen time Robert Pattinson has as Batman, does that make you like the Batman even more? Does it not change how you feel about it at all? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this and why it does or doesn't change your thoughts on the Batman. And he said he pulled. Oh crap! What did I do? I pushed the wrong button. He found a source on online to show that the Batman screen time is that he is Batman for 102 minutes of the movie and Bruce Wayne for 27 minutes. So that is a total of 73% of the movie. Anyway, keep the bat signal shining, Matt Malecki. Thank you, Matt. I will say we didn't talk the actual number of minutes that he is Batman in the movie, but we've mentioned multiple times that one of the things we like about the movie is how much Batman is in it. So even though we didn't talk actual like numbers or percentages, we always said this is the most Batman we have seen in a movie, and that is really cool because so much of the time he's Bruce Wayne and not Batman, and this is the opposite. Most of the time he's Batman, and for me, I think that's a big plus of the movie. Robert, what do you think?
No, I agree. It's a plus, and I wonder if that percentage of the movie takes into account end credits too, or not.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because that percentage might actually be higher.
Well, and also like the percentage of 73%, I don't count Bruce Wayne in that percentage.
Okay.
Or no, I'm just saying. Sorry. Let me clarify. That is including Bruce Wayne, but I would not include Bruce Wayne. Is my point. Enough. So 73% feels inaccurate because that's counting Bruce Wayne as Batman screen time, which is not the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting, and I think certainly the movie revolves around Batman primarily, and it's nice to see him. I'm not hung up on the story. I feel that, like, when you talk about, like, Batman Returns, you also have to consider that the villains reflect Batman in various ways. So it is a story about Batman in certain ways, because he's up against an evil billionaire masquerading as a philanthropist. He's up against a mass vigilante, and he's up against an orphaned freak, when two of them have animal fetishes too. So I feel like it is a Batman movie, even if Batman isn't on screen. And I feel that the same way about The Dark Knight, even if Joker is sometimes dominating, it's in reaction to him. So I feel that while it's definitely a plus and a novelty, I don't in itself think screen time makes it a better Batman film. It's how you use that screen time.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I just did the numbers of actual Batman screen time, not including Bruce Wayne, and at that it's 58% of the movie, which is still a hell of a lot.
That is a lot.
Yeah. But I will say, and if you go back to that, is like, I know that's one of the complaints about Batman Returns. I think you make a very valid point. But his screen time in Batman Returns is more than fans exaggerate. And I think that was the point I made way back on that episode, as I brought it up, and it was like 27% of the movie or something like that, which was pretty in line with, honestly, the whole Burton Schumacher era. Those were all pretty close to each other. I think they all were between like 27 and 32% of the movie. So it was actually, it's not as bad as a lot of times people, try to hold against that movie. Jamie, thoughts?
I mean, one of the things that I do really like and appreciate about the Batman is how much Batman is present and on the screen in costume. But I've seen the movie 4 times now, and I mean, relevant to the conversation or not, I can't force myself to move the needle on liking it more, even though I'm trying to. I don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair enough. I still haven't watched it on HBO Max. I've been busy, and it's finding the time. All right, next message from Mark Bickford. It says, "Hey guys, obviously it's a sad time for DC fans right now. Since your last show, we've lost Legends of Tomorrow, Batwoman, and Neil Adams all in the same day. Now a week later, we've lost George Perez. So my first question relates to those great men. What are some of your favorite books or runs by George Perez and Neil Adams? I know you're behind on the Arrowverse stuff, but do you have any fond memories or favorite episodes of Legends and Batwoman? My next one's a little bit heavier. What is your personal or preferred concept of Bruce Wayne? To explain what I mean, back in the Golden Age, all the way through the early Bronze Age, Bruce's mission was depicted as no stranger than Bill Gates spending all his money to fight world hunger, and he was uniformly paternal towards Dick and Jason. But as time went on and comics pivoted to an older audience, Bruce has been viewed more pathologically, with stories focusing on the supposed darkness of his obsession, and is treating the various Robins and Batgirls as soldiers and pawns in his war, rather than as children under his care. So how do you picture Bruce, and how do you prefer to see him portrayed? All right. Have a great week, Mark. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. I feel like we've covered Neil Adams and George Perez pretty well on the last 2 episodes, so I think that I will just defer to the conversation we just had about an hour ago, as well as last episode, as far as those go. But your questions. So, Arrowverse, any favorite memories of Legends or Batwoman, and then thoughts on how Bruce Wayne is portrayed. Jamie, why don't you start?
As far as Legends, Batwoman, any of that stuff, I mean, the fondest memories and biggest light things I can refer to as the crossover episodes. I didn't watch Batwoman, past probably the first half of the first season. So, I mean, I don't have enough knowledge to really pull out anything specific there. As far as Bruce Wayne is concerned, I think my preference for Bruce is I like the idea of Bruce being an internal conflict of who he wants to be, how he wants to serve Gotham, and the extended family that he has, Dick, Tim, Barbara, even Commissioner Gordon to an extent. But I think my preferred Bruce is the one who has already had those conflicts and is now at terms with what he is. Like, I feel my favorite Bruce is the one who has had the experience and is now set in the way that he wants to be and how he wants to serve the city in and out of costume.
All right. Robert, thoughts?
I watched scattered episodes of Legends of Tomorrow, so I don't really have a favorite episode, though. I think I always enjoyed it when I watched it. Batwoman, I never watched an episode of, so I have nothing to add there. But as far as Batman, my concept may be that he has some darker impulses, but he adopts Robin basically out of noble impulses, and he helps Robin come to terms with his grief and vengeance and become a better person than Bruce sees himself as. And that also kind of brings out the nobility in Bruce himself and helps him fight off those darker impulses. That's how I view Bruce in relation to Robin. And I feel if you stray too far from it, you end up in All-Star Batman and Robin the Boy Wonder territory. And it has some amusing moments. Nobody really needs that as the de facto setting for the Batman-Robin relationship.
With just the simple you could feel the seething anger coming off of his lips about that book.
Oh, my God.
I decided that it's actually a satirical piss take, and I kind of enjoyed it on that level, especially the Green Lantern in the yellow painted episode.
I love the Green Lantern bit in that book. I don't care what anybody says. I think that's great, but it's certainly not for everyone, and I get it.
That's one of those books I'd been warned about. And
you haven't read it?
Oh, I was warned about it, and I thought, surely it can't be that bad. And then I read it, and I was like, oh, yes, it can. All right, so fond memories. So Legends, I have a lot of fond memories of. I loved that show. I think that towards the end, that became my favorite Arrowverse show. I loved the characters. I loved the mix of the characters, and I loved how different every episode could be. I remember they did one where it was very much a throwback to like an 80s slasher movie, and that was so fun. And that was within the last 2 years. So that one just jumps to mind, but there were a lot of things about Legends throughout its run that I really enjoyed. And I did enjoy Batwoman, but I can't pull out like a specific episode or anything. But I did like it. And so, I think more of that, like I just kind of appreciated as they would bring in more things about Batman and Gotham. And the fact that they were able to pass the cowl to a brand new character in Ryan Wilder, and I thought for sure that would be horrible. And then Ryan Wilder and Javicia Leslie really won me over. And so huge credit to her. She was great. And you would think that after Ruby Rose left, that would be the end of it. And the fact that she got 2 seasons of her own, I think that's really impressive. As for Bruce, I agree with you guys. I do like a Bruce who is out there with this public facing persona where he's running the Wayne Foundation and Wayne Enterprises. I like the billionaire playboy, but he's always trying to help Gotham, both as Batman and as Bruce. And then as for his relationship with the Bat family, I completely agree. I do think sometimes writers go a little too far in portraying him as a little too hard on the Bat family, or not being paternal enough, or being kind of selfish or misguided in his tutelage of them. And that does bug me, because at the end of the day, he's doing it to help them and he's doing it to protect them, and he's never going to be a warm fuzzy Mr. Rogers type. But I think there's a nice balance of sort of a tough love that Bruce takes with the Robins, of he wants them to be safe, he wants them to be okay, but sometimes he still has to make decisions that they're not going to be happy with, but in the end it's for their own good. And I like it when the stories really play that up, of that at the end of the day, he loves them and wants to do right by them, even if it's not what they think they want.
Yeah, I would agree. And I feel that a lot of that comes from misinterpretation of Dark Knight Returns.
Yes.
I feel he's very affectionate and even amused by Carrie Kelly.
Yeah.
And that even though he may be gruff on the exterior, he never actually fires her, even the amount of time that he threatens to fire her. And he could do that at any time, and he's very comforting when she's in danger, like when she's fallen off that Batwing of his, and he takes the time to comfort her, and he's very abused by her in several instances. So I feel that we are maybe the take on his relationship with the Robins is distorted because of her, but I feel you need to go back and actually read that story.
Yeah.
Amen.
All right, moving forward, the next message is from our pal Muhammad. It says, "Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. In regards to your conversation about 3D, I just want to say that How to Train Your Dragon was a great 3D experience. Just saying. Moving on, while the Gotham portrayed in The Batman is good, it doesn't quite scratch my expectations. But then I remembered something. I'd love to see Gotham in lines of the city shown in Evanescence Bring Me to Life video. It's just a weird thought. Anyway, you guys rock, and I'll keep my email short. Regards, Muhammad." Thanks, Muhammad. What's funny is I can totally picture Evanescence's Bring Me to Life video, and I know exactly what you're talking about. So
I love Evanescence, and I will not apologize.
That song rules. 19 years later,
rules.
that song freaking rules. Still.
I just watched Daredevil for the first time in a couple years the other day.
I love that movie. Fight me.
No, I'm not fighting you because I do too.
And good point about How to Train Your Dragon. You're right. That's another great 3D movie.
I mean, that's a great trilogy, period. But yeah. I'll get on that boat. Yeah.
Okay, we got one last email here. This is from Brian B. It says, "Hey guys, I hope you're going well. Andy, I hope fatherhood's treating you well. My questions will be half Young Justice, half Jurassic Park, and then some Batman thrown in just because I have to. In terms of Young Justice, Jamie on the last episode mentioned how Young Justice has made a huge comeback after a very rocky start, and much like you, I'm 100% back. However, I was disheartened when show creator Greg Weisman, who also did the sorely underappreciated Spectacular Spider-Man, said that the show will never have a final battle/showdown because he says that's not how a comic universe is. Well, I agree with that. I believe in the TV universe with a show, you should have an ending. Not one where there will never be villains, mind you, but you can create a sense of closure with a show like this. Would you feel let down in the final season, either this one or next, if it just ends with no proper goodbye and closure? Secondly, Andy, I've been doing my Jurassic Park rewatch. I was wondering your quick power ranking of the franchise. Personally, I would go with Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, Jurassic Park 3, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, Lost World. Personally, while this has been a fun project, I'll say I haven't seen The Lost World since 1997, since I was so disappointed. And I have to say, I thought my second viewing was going well, then the T-Rex baby happened and the bottom fell out. I was wondering what your reaction was to seeing it for the first time and your defense or views of the film. Lastly, just some quick Batman casting ideas. Lance Reddick or Wendell Pierce as Lucius Fox, Gene Smart as Leslie Tompkins, and just a fun one, the actors who play the cousins on Breaking Bad as the Trigger Twins, who are the most random villain that Batman has, that I always wanted to see on screen. As always, thanks for your hard work and best of luck going forward, Brian B. Thanks, Brian B. Okay, so Young Justice, Jurassic Park, and then I like your Batman casting. My favorite thing is Gene Smart as Leslie Tompkins, because Gene Smart is the best.
Sign me up for that.
Season 2 of Hacks just came out, and I can't wait because she's freaking amazing.
She is a treasure.
Yeah. All right. So, Young Justice first. I did not hear these comments, but I will agree with you, Brian, in that if a show has an ending, if a show has a series finale, yes, you should do something that feels like a finale, like a climax, and like some sort of wrap up, because you know that show is ending. So in comics, yes, it has to keep going forever, but for a TV show, I think the rules are a little different. And so I hope that whenever they do decide the show is ending, I know that it still hasn't been picked up for another season. I hope that it feels like enough of an ending that we get a little closure. But I feel like every season they haven't been sure if it's ending. So I feel like each season finale feels like some version of an ending. So I hope that will be the case when this ends. But like we said earlier, I agree. I think that season 4 has really, it started the upswing with the Zatanna arc, but I think that now it's really got its footing back. Any thoughts on that, Robert?
Well, yeah, I feel that the way television has evolved, that and especially if you don't know if you're going to get renewed, that you should do something to resolve your arcs. Mm-hmm. You don't want to do a Twin Peaks season 2 and then have the fans wonder for 30 years, basically. So you want to wrap things up. It doesn't need to be in a tidy package saying nothing happens after this, but it can be emotionally and character satisfying. I mean, that's what you should aim for at the end of each of your seasons.
Or Alf season 4.
Or My Name is Earl.
Oh, okay.
Or Dharma and Greg. All these shows that ended on this bloody cliffhanger that you never got closure for.
Any additional thoughts, Jamie?
No, I trust the writers of Young Justice enough at this point that whatever conclusion they ultimately have, whenever it may come, that it will be satisfactory in some way, be it as a character moment versus a battle or what have you. So I'll have faith in that. I would rather see, the spectacular close because, entertainment value is, always a key thing for me. But I'll roll with what they got, and I just hope they don't get shortchanged in that department.
All right. And then Jurassic Park. Oh man. This could be its own episode, not of this show, but of real fans or something. Here's my hot take is there's Jurassic Park, which is my favorite movie of all time, number 1. And then all 4 sequels I put pretty much on equal footing as good, strong, fun sequels, but I don't find any of them particularly much better than any others. If I had
that is a hot take.
If I had to rank, because and someone else said this, and I'm stealing it, is like Jurassic Park is like a 4-star summer movie. All the sequels are good, solid 3-star entertaining movies. And I think that was like the fairest take ever, because I'm like, I've liked all the sequels to one extent or another. If I had to rank them, it's harder than I would think.
I can go if you want a second to think
go
about
for it.
Okay, my number one is Jurassic World, and second place ain't even close. But going second on back, I think it goes Jurassic World, then Jurassic Park 3, Fallen Kingdom, and Lost World. And I don't hate any of those last ones. I think they all have their merits. The only ones that I think are really good movies are the first two that I mentioned.
Robert, thoughts?
I'm kind of with you. I think it's Jurassic Park and then everything else. But it's definitely Jurassic Park is number one for me. And then I kind of throw them all kind of in a bucket, and depends on the mood. I guess I would probably go. It's hard to choose among them because they all have something that I feel is very notable.
That's exactly where I'm at. That's why I feel like all the rest of them are all tied at number 2, because they all have things that I love about them, and they all have things that I think are a little disappointing. But I think they're all really solid, fun, entertaining Jurassic Park movies.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Lost World. It definitely has problems, but that trailer scene is pretty darn terrific.
Yeah,
that's a terrific set piece.
Yeah, I'm going with that for now. I would need to think about it, but I will say Lost World is one of those movies that the first time I saw it in 1997, it was one of the most disappointing movie-going experiences of my life. I was heartbroken walking out of there because of how much I love Jurassic Park. And The Lost World, I just was so disappointed in. And I went back the next day, that same weekend, hoping that I was wrong, and I was not. And over the years, I've made my peace with it, and I do like it now, but I do think it is a far cry from Jurassic Park. I do feel like Spielberg was in a lot of ways on autopilot. I don't feel like his heart was in it, and you can kind of tell. But I still think it's pretty good. Like you said, the 2 T-Rexes and the trailer on the cliff is a dynamite set piece. It is terrific, and it is, I think, the best. It's the best set piece in the film. And there are a couple other good ones too, but I think that, overall the story was it has its issues, and I think there's a lot of missed opportunities in it. So I like it well enough. I made my peace with it, but 1997, I was just sad that it was what it was.
Yeah, I mean, I had fun in the theater, but it's more of a roller coaster ride than the first one is. I think it suffers from that, and it definitely has the San Diego sequence is definitely the weakest section of that film.
Yeah. So I have things I love about all of them, and I have some little nitpicks of all of them, but except for the first one, and my only nitpick of the first one is that it doesn't go on for 8 hours.
Yeah, and Jurassic World I like, but I have a love-hate relationship with these kind of legacy sequels.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, well, yeah, I love Jurassic Park, but you don't need to tell me I love Jurassic Park. I can just watch Jurassic Park in this age of home video.
Right. Anyway, that might be fun to do on Real Fans in the lead up to Dominion. But let's close the Wayne Manor mailbox. If you got something for the Wayne Manor mailbox, you can send that to Holy BatCast at rf4rm.com. I also realized at the beginning I was so excited to have Robert on. We forgot to tell you guys about Manscaped, so I got to give a quick shout out before we wrap up to manscaped.com, our sponsors and our pals, on our mission to keep all of our listeners well groomed and smelling nice. So please, if you haven't yet, go to manscaped.com, and if you do, use the promo code BATSCAPED because you get 20% off, and they got a lot of great products there. Obviously, they have the old tried and true trimmers, the whole variety pack that gives you a little something for everything, but they've continued to branch out. And I'll tell you a story. Just yesterday, just yesterday, Saturday morning, I come down from taking my shower and Catherine goes, "Oh, you smell good. What, is that something new?" And I'm like, "Well, the only new thing would be my Manscaped deodorant. So I guess that's it." And she goes, "Oh, I like it." I'm like, "Okay, well, good," because I've been using it. And so apparently that worked. But yeah, now they've got just regular deodorant. They've got body wash. They've got shampoo, conditioner. They've got lotion. I've got the lip balm that I tried the other time. Not to mention your trimmers, your toner, the other deodorant for downstairs, all that good stuff. And they are usually running sales. But as I told you recently, just because they're running a sale doesn't mean you shouldn't use BatScaped. You should, because you get the additional 20% off. You get whatever discount they're running plus another 20% off, and you can't beat it. So it's something you can buy for you and help us in the meantime. So please go to manscaped.com, use the promo code BatScaped. Jamie, have you gotten your new products yet?
I have, and let me tell you, with this heat that we've had in the last week, I've been using the body wash, the standard armpit deodorant, the body spray, and the lip balm, and all of it is doing the Lord's work in keeping me dry and smelling good. So high quality stuff, and I can't recommend that enough.
Good. All of Fort Wayne thanks you.
Yes, they do, especially the people in my house.
Good. Good. I'm glad you got it. Glad you liked it. And yeah, like I said, lots of great stuff there. So check out all their products at manscaped.com. Use BatScaped if you're going to buy something, because it does help us out in the long run. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. That's where we're going to wrap up the show. I got breakfast plans. I got to get the hell out of here. So thanks for joining us. Robert, it was a pleasure having you.
Well, it's a pleasure to be on. It's been too long.
It absolutely has.
Well, we'll have to do this again. And I know I teased at the beginning of the episode that Andy's going to be on my podcast, Still Watching the Skies, next month. You can find it where the Long Tail Ends feed through any of your podcast catchers. We're going to be talking Waterworld, which I believe Andy has been working on over in his adventures in Beijing. So I think that'll be fun, too.
I spent over 2 years of my life living and breathing Waterworld, so I'm excited to talk about it with you.
He's got the gills behind his ears to prove it.
I do. Mudo freak. Anyway, Jamie, thank you as well. Tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at BatRaider3960, on Letterboxd at my name, Jamie Drewley, and on this fine show on a regular basis.
All right, awesome. I already told you guys where to find me, but thank you for joining us. Thanks for downloading the show. Please do follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. If you don't want to be a patron, that's cool. If you don't want to buy Manscaped, you're lost, but okay. But something you can do to support us that is quick and it's free is to just leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Visit holybatcast.com and find Holy BatCast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. Just Holy BatCast. Again, if you got something for the Wayne Manor mailbox, send that to holybatcast@rf4rm.com. A big thank you, as always, to Gaurav Venkateswar. He does our theme music. His work can be found at gvtunes.com. I've actually had some other podcast pals of mine go, hey, where'd you get your music done? Gaurav. So look up Gaurav on at gvtunes.com or find him on Twitter at gvtunes. He's super sweet. And I don't know. I make no promises, but it doesn't hurt to reach out to him if you need some support for your podcast. And again, go to manscaped.com if you want to purchase something. Use the promo code BATSCAPED for an additional 20% off. That would be greatly appreciated. But that'll do it. On behalf of Jamie and Robert, I've been Andy. We'll see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel. Holy BatCast is not affiliated with Warner Brothers or DC Entertainment. The views and opinions shared by the participants are theirs and theirs alone and do not represent the companies or organizations they happen to work for.
I can't speak much to his Marvel work, but I can't do his DC work.
That's okay, because we don't really care about his Marvel work right now. I mean, we care, but that's not what the show's about.
Fair enough.
All right, here we go. Oh, excuse me again.
You're allergic to being awake this early on a Sunday.
Oh my God, it's true. My body is like, what are you doing? It's Sunday. This is not supposed to happen.